Rogan Report podcast. Check it out.
All things Joe Rogan by day. Rogan Report podcast by night. All day. All night. Half hour to an hour-ish episodes once a week.
The Rogan Report podcast.
Check 2. Check.
Hello.
Hello, Shane. I heard you. I'm not hearing myself as much. I think I've got the monitor off for myself, but I am seeing stuff being recorded, so that's a good sign. I'm seeing the waves,
That
as
bar
they say.
is moving.
Yeah. Welcome to the first episode of the Rogan Report.
Excellent.
Possibly episode 0 that will never air if I end up screwing it up somehow massively. But a good place to start, I think.
These are the places we have to go first.
Yes, absolutely they are. So maybe we'll talk a little about what this podcast is. You and I, both massive fans of Joe Rogan in his podcasting and his commentating on the UFC, his kind of general outlook on life, I would say.
Absolutely.
And his, to a lesser extent, his stand-up comedy.
For sure. Yep.
But I like his stand-up as well. But I've often said what he does best is interview people and host a podcast.
I think so.
His biggest strength. But because he's so prolific with his show, he's. I've listened to all of them. Have you listened to all of them?
Pretty much all of them. There's a few that I've bowed out on, but not many. Like I'll just let them play. Even
yeah, they're somewhere over like 1,100 episodes now, and the average is being about 3 hours. And in the words of the internet, ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, well,
although clearly you and I do have time for that.
Many people do, even in their regular workday, have time for it.
We make time for it.
Yeah.
But as a target of this podcast would be people who maybe don't have time or love podcasts but don't want to commit 15 hours a week to Joe Rogan, but would be happy to commit 40 minutes to an hour to the Rogan Report and get a basic recap. And then if they like what we're saying in the recap, they'll go and listen to the full 3-hour episode. Or if they're like, oh, okay, I got enough from the recap, they'll not go listen. I don't know. Do you think Rogan would be pissed about that idea? I
don't think so. I think bringing more eyes to his podcast is only a good thing.
Yeah. I suppose it could be used that way too. We both recommend people listen to Rogan for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. I would love to talk to him about it. I was talking to a friend of ours, George, earlier, and I don't want to have my goal isn't for this to be a guest-based podcast. I want to have regular co-hosts that discuss Joe Rogan and the latest episodes. I think every week we'll recap the previous week's episodes and kind of talk about our feelings on them. And then I don't want to have multiple guests all the time coming in and interviewing other people. That's not really the intent of the show. But if Joe Rogan wants to come on, I suppose we could make an exception.
Open door policy, I'd have to say, for Joe Rogan.
Yeah. That's kind of my feelings on the subject as well.
Yeah.
I'm not loving wearing these headphones, I gotta be honest. I think that I might lose them right now.
Okay. Feels a little unnatural.
Yeah, I can see them recording, and I'm so much louder just because the headphones block out and isolate my voice.
It's a little weird too when only one of you is wearing them, I think, too. I've found that having both of us in that same space isn't too bad, but
maybe in the future we'll
experiment.
We'll have more. It does look like you're actually recording at a slightly higher volume than my mic. I don't know if that's some setting that I fucked up.
Is that actually on the audio interface maybe? A little different?
Or
not really?
No, they are. You're right. Yeah. That's probably the factor. Okay.
Excellent.
I guess that's what I'll do. I'll just look for the as long as our lines are kind of similar there, then I'll assume that we're a similar volume.
Yep.
Shane, give me a good solid sentence.
We're learning here. You're learning with us as we create this podcast. Every day it's going to evolve.
You're making almost no lines. Look at the level of your lines.
Should I talk louder? Does that make a difference in the lines?
It is odd. It is odd.
It was going steady for a bit there. And is it even moving right now?
Yeah, well, it's weird on the double track up here. I can see your voice more, but when it goes down here, it's a lot quieter. I don't know if that's just because maybe it's because mine is selected and it's not showing. I don't know. I'll have to experiment when I go to edit this. But,
yeah, for sure.
I'll probably take this conversation about the levels out of the show, or maybe I'll leave it in. I don't know.
Yeah.
People do kind of like hearing a little bit behind the scenes,
I think so.
But if it was too much, people would definitely turn on podcast off and move on to other shows. So let's get right into it.
Mm-hmm.
The meat of the episode, as they say. I made some notes. Did you make any notes on the episodes?
Mental ones.
Okay. I have some physical notes.
We can go with your notes
in my phone. So Rogan took some time off, took a little vacation, and was gone for a couple of weeks. And then there's my dog.
Hello, Dolly.
We'll see if we hear her in the final mix. But then he came back with Shooter Jennings. That was his first episode last week. And Shooter Jennings, of course, the son of famous country musician Waylon Jennings, and a musician himself, a producer, and all-around cool guy. The note I made for this, my kind of key takeaway from that episode, Shooter has a loyalty to Alex Jones that has blinded him to Alex's shitty behavior.
a little bit. Oh, man.
But also, the world does need to relax, as he put it.
Absolutely, it does.
So what were your thoughts on that episode?
I mean, Shooter Jennings, I thought was an interesting character. Definitely.
Yeah. Likes to experiment with his consciousness. Good friends with other past guests. I'm spacing on his name. Country music star, was here recently. Wrote that "Turtles All the Way Down" song. You know what I'm talking about?
What's his name? You're not
Lake of Fire. Yeah, I'm spacing on it too. Well, we are fans of Rogan, we promise, even if we don't remember every little statistic. I have terrible recall. Maybe we should have had some Alpha Brain before recording.
I'd be willing to try the Alpha Brain.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to, actually.
I have tried it, actually. We had we had not just Alpha Brain, but we had whiskey mixed with Alpha Brain, which they named on the podcast, and they were in Hawaii. They named that drink something that I can't recall, but that's one thing that it's supposed to really help with, is like quick recall of your memories and whatnot. Doesn't actually make you smarter, but it does help your brain to just work a little.
Joe says he doubles up on that stuff for the UFCs and for podcasts.
Yeah. So maybe that's something in the future that we can look at, maybe for the next episode. Anything else to say on the Shooter Jennings episode? Would you recommend someone, a more casual Rogan listener, would you recommend they listen to that one?
Not necessarily, unless you had a special interest in Shooter Jennings, I would say.
Or in Alex Jones.
It's so broad.
They talked a lot about Alex. And
yeah.
Not just, Alex was maybe more of a, like a gateway for them to just talk about the state of America and the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like they talked about him for a long time.
Alex has been getting more and more special as time goes on, I've been noticing. Because I used to watch his videos. I went down this rabbit hole a little bit back in like 2010, before 2012, the lead up to it. I kind of went in a little deep.
Yeah. And you found he's been getting more extreme.
Yeah.
And it's weird that like whole, aliens are raping your daughters. Like
to add on to conspiratorial themes, have you ever heard anything about MK Ultra?
Yeah.
He actually looks like he might be a victim of MK Ultra. I mean, think back to like Anna Nicole Smith doing crazy stuff, and Britney Spears with the head shave, and look up MK Ultra.
Yeah, give that a quick Google.
Like I said, 2010 was the rabbit hole year.
So yeah, I would say Shooter Jennings. If you're a fan of country music, if you're a fan of even the music industry in general, and a fan of conspiracy theory talk, listen to the episode. Give it a shot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Next episode, that was 1157. On 1158, Chuck Palahniuk. Palahniuk? I don't know how to say it.
I think it was Palahniuk.
Palahniuk?
I think so.
I think Rogan said it, and then he was saying, like, is that how I say it? Because I think he wasn't even sure. It's spelled Palahniuk. It's not spelled like that. It's spelled Palahniuk.
Oh wow,
I would say Palahniuk.
that's yeah.
But I could very well be wrong. That one surprised me. I didn't know who it was going to be, and then as soon as I started talking, we find out he's the author of Fight Club and a whole bunch of other kind of alternative books, on alternative subjects, and they talk a lot about the writing process in general, and like the process of creativity and what should be allowed, kind of what shouldn't be allowed. They talk about censorship. What were your thoughts on the episode?
Again, I had no idea that was the author of the Fight Club, and that was great. Joe kept mentioning how intense he was when he went to the washroom there.
Yeah,
and he was intense. I found
he was
engaging, especially for a fellow I'd never actually heard of before.
Yeah, and he felt very honest and like present, and he had some self-deprecating, but clearly a very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the stories that he told that stood out to me was he was talking about the author Cheryl Strayed. She wrote that book Wild that became a movie with, I think it's Reese Witherspoon.
Right. Yeah.
And how Cheryl had written a story for that book that they didn't include because they thought it would be too graphic and too much for
the grandfather,
for people to forget about the story. I was like, when they told that story on the show, I was like, holy shit, that is a fucked up story.
Oh, dark.
So I'll recap it. So Cheryl wrote about when she was a small child, her grandfather taught her to masturbate him. And they were both sitting on the couch. One day, so obviously some horrid sexual abuse there. But then one day she's out walking and finds a small featherless bird that had fallen out of a nest, and recognized that it was going to die, and that it was suffering, and then decided to like crush it and kill it in her bare hands, which she does. And then in its like death throes and death spasms, she like acknowledges that it feels like her grandfather's penis ejaculating in her hand.
Yeah.
Whoa. that was dark.
And so dark also because you see that right away.
Yeah.
As he was describing it, like,
Totally.
Oh my God, I can almost feel it in my own hand. I need to go wash
not the
him.
killing the bird thing, but yeah.
No, yeah.
The other thing. And so, and then he talks about how that was a brilliant piece of writing. He said, I don't know if he was quoting her, but he said the best thing she's ever written. And the editors for the book said, no, we can't put that in there because we want this to be an accepted book. We want this to be a book everyone can enjoy. And it did become a book that, it's on Oprah's list and it'll be in bookstores forever. It's a hugely, wildly successful book. And maybe it wouldn't have been as successful with that story in it. Maybe it would. But definitely not a very palatable story and some very disturbing imagery. So I just thought talking about that was interesting. And then when he talked about, his writing process and whether, he doesn't want to like offend people and hurt people.
Yeah.
He wants to kind of like walk up to the edge and he wants to evoke emotion, but he's kind of conflicted. And he said he felt like a bully with some of the things that he's writing. And the way he like lulls people. He'll start a story where it's like fun and light and good feelings. And then he knows that where it's going is somewhere dark and disturbing. And, he feels kind of guilty about that. So I thought that was really fascinating as well.
And for me, that's what I need from a story when I'm reading. I can't be just reading some Nora Roberts,
Yeah.
Everybody's happy and always stays that way and ends up that way. And
yeah, I would tend to agree also.
Yeah.
Cool. So Chuck Palahniuk, would you recommend it to your average Rogan listener?
Absolutely. There's a lot of Fight Club fans out there, and any Fight Club fans out there. Absolutely. That's a great listen and a good
It was one that as soon as I was done, I texted my brother-in-law. I was like, hey, this is because he's a casual listener of Rogan, doesn't listen to all of them, but he's loved some of the ones that I've told him to listen to. He's been like, oh, just tell me when there's a good one and I'll listen. Yeah. And he has, so I texted him right away. I was like, hey, this Chuck Palahniuk 1158, check it out. It's a great episode.
Absolutely.
So after 1158, there was 1159. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
I love Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil's always fun to listen to.
Yeah, he's so, I love, one of the things I love, obviously he's brilliant, but I love the way he speaks. He's so like almost theatrical in the way in
got a
his
sing
sentences.
song to his voice.
Yeah, and there's no ums or ahs or ers. He's very deliberate with his language, and while he is incredibly knowledgeable on a vast array of subjects, if it comes to something he doesn't know, he'll be like, "Hey, I don't know anything about that. That's not in my area of expertise. I don't know." And he's happy to say, "I don't know." Happy to learn. They talked about. Rogan asked him, I thought, a brilliant question. He asked him, "What's the latest? What's the last thing you learned? What have you been excited to learn?" And then they talked about that for a little while.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. He's still excited to learn, and they talked a little bit about the school systems and how the school systems are kind of created to prevent people from being excited about learning, and not by intent necessarily, but certainly by execution.
Mhm.
They kind of take the creativity. I listened to a really good TED Talk on the subject as well, that their school system is designed to have people be able to go into jobs and work jobs. And, you kind of learn how to go to a 9 to 5, and you learn how to do things you don't necessarily want to do because you have to do it and obviously there's also some payoff often to doing something you don't want to do and getting through it. But they really take the creativity out of the,
they're
out of
just
the
making
people.
cogs in the machine. They're
Yeah.
not making creative thinkers necessarily.
And we need creative thinkers for all the crazy fucking shit that we've got ourselves into with this society.
Things are getting weird.
Things are getting weird. My mom told me about an article yesterday that talks about how it's too late. Like, it doesn't. We're not going to. This is the beginning of the end right now.
Yeah.
As far as global warming,
Yeah.
it's too late. We're not going to be able to fix it.
You don't have to look far.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Lately, I mean,
it does. I've seen more people. With the fires. Just for everyone's background, there's been fires in BC in Canada. We're recording this in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and the smoke from the fires in BC has now gone all the way across the country.
Yeah,
and
it was in Newfoundland the other day. Some of my family's pictures they were putting up.
And it's not as I don't think that their air quality there is nearly what ours is, but the air quality in Edmonton and in BC has been like severely
terrible,
impaired. Yeah, it's bad. So. I've seen people say the word apocalypse in my Facebook thread
a lot,
way more than I ever saw it before.
Yeah,
and people posting pictures of just apocalyptic scenes in Canada. So I don't know. That's maybe a little bleak, and I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but Neil deGrasse Tyson,
yeah,
he's gonna save us.
People like him for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
he's a astrophysicist. And I would recommend that episode to any casual listener. Go listen to it.
Absolutely. And if you are interested at all in astrophysics or science in general, he's a great guy to listen to. He's not stodgy. And
I would say of the categories of Rogan episodes that there are, you've got like MMA episodes, hunting episodes, comedian episodes, and then like not just physicists and scientists, but just like great thinkers in general. And those are my favorite episodes typically. I love like Sam Harris and just intellectuals. So many like awesome intellectuals. I like Jordan Peterson. I tend to agree with his views. And he does get, as Rogan says, extremely misrepresented by a lot of media. I've listened to probably 25 hours of him speaking. And I don't agree with everything he says, or certainly I don't agree with everything he does, but I don't think that he's this like crazy neo-Nazi that everyone kind of on the extreme left makes him out to be.
I've listened to him on a few other podcasts too.
Yeah,
so
me too.
Not just the Joe Rogan one. So and he's the same guy across the board.
Yeah, and in interviews, did you watch that interview? It was in like talk show in Britain, I think, and the host was like just like definitely had an agenda of like going into that conversation to like get him and like to create sound bites where she was like super standoffish and
oh yeah.
Did you
I didn't see that one.
Didn't see that one?
Did they bring that one up?
They've talked about it on
they
Rogan,
did,
yeah, for sure. And then I went and listened to it, and it is incredible to see. And he said that she had been so friendly, and then as soon as the like interview started, she just like flipped a switch and was a completely different person.
Oh, that's harsh.
Yeah, it sucks that that's out there, but I would recommend Neil deGrasse Tyson to anyone.
Absolutely.
Bert Kreischer.
I love Bert Kreischer.
Yeah, former guest on my podcast, my other podcast that Hijacked Headspace, which I've been a host of since 2012.
Yeah.
And we had Bert on, and so yeah, I have a little bit of an affinity for Bert.
How was Bert in person?
He's fun.
The same as he is on.
Yeah, basically,
TV?
maybe not. I mean, maybe not as. He's a little more subdued than I think in his stand-up or specials. Like when you hear him tell the machine story, he wasn't that guy. At our house in Edmonton. But yeah, he was drinking and having a good time, and he was going like.
Sometimes his laugh
doing
is
the
all
Bert
I need to
Kreisher
start
laugh. So yeah, and this episode they talked about he's got a new special out.
Yeah.
That was definitely one of the purposes for going on. And you said you went and watched the special.
I watched it Friday, the day it came out,
and
I thought it was great. It was super funny. They touched on a few of his bits in the podcast itself.
Oh, okay.
You were what was it? The beer can one. He gets up and he's got like a PTA meeting, and he's hungover or something, so he grabs himself a coffee and what he thought were 2 Diet Cokes.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not killing anything because he said this on the Joe Rogan podcast. As he's cracking, he said he killed the coffee on the way to the thing, but he gets there and he pulls out a Diet Coke and cracks it. And as he's sipping, he's like, "Whoops, that's a Coors Light."
Yeah, I can see making that mistake.
Yeah, and he talks about people that are either like, so you're in a weird sex situation. Someone sticks a finger in your ass. Are you the type of guy that pushes back onto that thing?
Okay.
So, yeah, that was the whole gist of that one. But it was. I definitely recommend the special. It's hilarious.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely check it out as I am a fan of Bert Kreischer.
Yeah.
What did you think about the podcast?
Always good to listen to Bert, and I honestly like a lot of the comedian ones because they keep things funny and they'll talk about all kinds of different random stuff.
Yeah, they'll talk about a lot of the same stuff that the intellectuals are talking about,
just from a
slightly funnier way,
from sort of a viewpoint more similar to my viewpoint, which I like.
Cool. Yeah, they talked. It seems like all of that group is trying to get a lot healthier, right? And they talked a little bit about their goals for that.
Yeah.
Excuse me, a quick sec here. Take a quick.
Sure.
People always doing
Yeah. Yeah. Well, everyone always does have to take a leak, except for Rogan, who seems to have like a steel trap of a bladder. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of holding on to it myself here. So as soon as he gets back, I'm probably gonna run away too. But yeah, I have to say I'm excited to finally get doing this. I've been talking about podcasting for years, to the point my family's sick of hearing about it. So here we are. I'm excited to be doing this.
Back on. I will edit out the dead airspace. Even though I'm not going to do much editing on these shows. You're going to mostly hear us stumble over our words and probably say the wrong thing from time to time.
Absolutely.
But
and hopefully you can monitor our progress as we get better.
Yeah, right. I think that's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bert Kreischer. If you're a fan of the comedian episodes, I would say definitely listen.
For sure.
If you're a big MMA guy, I don't know, maybe it's not for you. Or if you're listening for all the hunting. But, Bert's a fan of life and all the things that Rogan's a fan of. So, you probably will like. I don't know if there's going to be many that we don't recommend people listen to.
No, this is what's great about the Joe Rogan experience is how broad of a show it is.
I see there's a new episode today out as well, 1162, Valentine Thomas.
Oh, the spearfisher.
Thomas.
They talked about her on a previous episode.
Yeah, former lawyer and financier who quit to pursue a sustainable...
Was that Chuck talking about her, or was it Shooter?
Whoops. I just turned on my podcast for a second there, trying to get the rest of the blurb that they had printed for her.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't know. Her or him. I do remember them talking about the spearfishing, though. I think it was Bert, because Bert's gotten super heavy into
it is Bert. That's
spearfishing.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm most of the way through the Jerrod, Carmichael, and Jamar Neighbors podcast, which is 1161. which was the fifth episode of the week. They hit a pretty prolific week
For sure.
this last week. I guess after being on vacation for a while, he's like eager to pump out a few.
The workaholic.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about 1161. I like Jerrod Carmichael and Jamar Neighbors. I think they're super intelligent guys. Yeah, what did you think about the episode?
Kind of my first time hearing. I maybe had heard Jerrod Carmichael's name before, but I hadn't heard of the other fellow before.
Jamar Neighbors.
Joe was surprised by him showing up too. Apparently.
Oh yeah, he wasn't on the docket.
No, he showed up. Yeah, that was I wouldn't necessarily call that one your toe dip episode if you were coming in, because it's one of those in the weeds kind of comedian conversations.
Yeah, a little bit. I liked that they talked about outrage and kind of the difference between real outrage, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and something that is substantial and worthwhile, and like recreational outrage, like people being mad about the cultural appropriation of a sushi shop on a university campus.
Yeah,
it's like, fuck you, that doesn't matter. Move on to things that do matter. And,
and that tends to, I have to agree, and that seems to be the theme a lot.
Yeah, it does.
That's the people I like, that's generally what they're thinking lately.
Absolutely. And that's just the way the world is right now.
And that's a hot topic almost with every guest anyways.
Totally.
Regardless of what we're on there to discuss.
It does come up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe not, definitely not the first episode I'd steer you towards. What if someone's asking you like, hey, which Rogan should I listen to? Do you have an episode that you send them to?
First thing I would do is, what are you into?
Yeah.
Because Rogan's almost interviewed somebody from every single subject out there.
That's true.
It's getting pretty broad, but let's say, I'm fumbling here for a good one, but I have so many of them.
Yeah. I like the ones that first blew my mind when I started listening to Rogan. I started at about episode 110 or so. And then I listened to a few, and then I listened to it was Graham Hancock, the first episode of Graham Hancock, and it talks about Egypt, and like I hadn't really known about the possibility of Egypt being predated by what the mainstream Egyptologists say. And so him talking about that, and then it was like the next episode or 2 episodes later, Shane Smith from Vice was on for his first time.
That was a great episode,
and he was talking about like going to Liberia and like just insane. So those 2 episodes were the 2 that kind of got me hooked on Rogan, and then that's when I decided to go back and listen to all of them from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Which I was able to do because there was only like 100. They weren't all 3 hours. Then I think they were more like in 2-hour average length. And yeah, now it's weird, like because there's being 1,160 episodes, and plus all the like UFC commentary is like stand-up specials that I've seen. Him guesting on other podcasts that I've listened to.
Yeah,
I've listened to in the neighborhood of 4,000 hours of Joe Rogan
for sure
talking, which is like a university master's degree or something in Rogan.
He's nearly on episode 50 of that MMA hour.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's that as well. So both big fans of Rogan, and we recommend people listen to him, and we'll try to keep you up to date on what these latest episodes are about and some of our favorite things from them. I think that's sort of right now our intent with the podcast. Once a week, a quick recap of the previous Joe Rogan episodes, and maybe a little bit of shooting the shit about things we think.
Yeah, well, topics related and our opinions of, and
yeah, that makes sense to you?
That sounds great to me.
All right, well, we'll see. We need a way to sign off for the day. We're coming in right now. We've got a little over half an hour. Probably just under half an hour, but they take out the time we both went to take a lake. Yeah. What do you think we should do to sign off the episode?
Geez, I don't know. Bye, guys.
Okay.
No, I don't know. We can talk a little bit about what's coming up next week. He often does mention that.
That's true. So there's the Spearfisher episode coming. And then what else? Do you know what else he's got going on next week?
I don't.
When's
He did mention, what did he say? He said, we're going to definitely want these things written down.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the best.
I brought my notebook, but so we can talk a little bit about
notebooks.
Things like this. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's just leave it there. My name is Ruben.
I'm Shane Roach.
And thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Hey there, Joe Rogan, super fan. This podcast is for you, my man. Or woman, or non-binary. Our recaps will be legendary. The Rogan Report Podcast. Come on, you'll have a blast at the Rogan Report Podcast.